this one's a crowd pleaser. It goes over pretty great at parties, and I've done some good work during job interviews. It killed this one time at the bank. And I pretty much kind of use this story anytime somebody that I don't know very well asks me to tell them something about myself. And usually I end up panicking for a moment, but then I remember, oh no, okay, it's fine, because I've got the boot story. But the problem is, after a decade of avoiding conversations with this story that I'm about to tell you tonight, is that I don't like it anymore. I just don't like the boot story. It feels, I don't think the jokes are funny, and there were a lot of puns. I feel like I've kind of moved beyond that, but I mean, I'm going to tell it to you eventually. And it'll be fine, because I actually, to give you some confidence, I did have this writing prof once who liked the boot story so much that he sent it to an editor he knew at a major Canadian publication, which was an exciting time for the boot story, until we heard back from the editor who said, "Dear Amy, while I really enjoyed hearing your story about how you once got a boot stuck to your foot, here at the Walrus, when we publish personal stories, they have to have some kind of universal theme." Which, to me, was in direct contradiction with my strongly held belief that all of my life experiences had great and lasting universal significance. It kind of glazed over the fact that the boot wasn't just stuck to my foot, it's like, it was stuck for a long time. Like, I had to sleep with it on. And then get it cut off by some angry, geriatric Quebecois separatist, which is powerful symbolically and also a useful setting cue. There are some other things that I like about this story. I like that it's pure. It happened at a time, like I said, almost 10 years ago, when it was kind of impossible for me to have any kind of either storytelling or social media agenda in my daily life. Because at that point, all of my narcissism was just for me. So the events were born in their entirety, like, just out of my stunning ignorance over how to effectively impress a boy. And the boy was named John, and John was skinny, and he had nice genes, and he could do large multiplications in his head instantly. And John would take me to electro shows where people would be wearing trash bags and have lipstick smeared all over their face, because it seemed like the best way to get your perspective across. And then he'd come over to my house before the shows, and we'd go through my closet and pick out some clothing that we could tear apart and shred until it, like, power clashed with my identity. And then I would always just top it off with the baby blue knee-high boots with the silver buckles up the side, because I just felt like they were vibing with the kind of 19-year-old I wanted to be. I mean, the only problem was that they were a size and a half too small. So John would have to, like, very actively participate in the process of putting the boots on, just, like, squeezing my feet into these boots. So I guess we're doing it. The story. That wasn't a pun, I Okay. One night, I get home and take the right boot off. Fine. Left boot. ... Nothing. It's not coming off. So I started pulling it and tugging it and other verbs. None of them were working. And eventually I just kind of did the thing that I like mostly do in moments of crisis, which is to go to bed. With my boot on, and my pants on, and my trash bag on. The next morning I was still in bed, and I called my roommate into my room, and I asked her if she could help me take the boot off my foot. So she spent the next 30 minutes and all of her energy at the foot of my bed, just pulling on my boot with everything she had, as I just lay there, my body inching down the mattress, thinking about how life is sometimes hard. And as much as people usually seem to like the boot story, I have gotten a lot of flack over the years for the dream sequence. Because I guess it just seems really convenient that after my roommate failed to get the boot off, that I would just spend like maybe 2 or 3 hours just cycling through this series of intense but very similar dreams in which I had a boot stuck to my foot and then eventually would get it off. And so I kept having to re-experience the heightened post-dream disappointment when I woke up and realized that my boot was still on and that my foot was starting to throb. The first time that I ever told the boot story was later that afternoon when I called my mom. And I said, "Mom, there's a boot stuck to my foot." And she said, like maybe just 6 minutes of words of general mom concern that was increasing every minute, and so I eventually said, "All right, I'm going to deal with this," and I put the other boot back on. And I put my jacket on and I went out into the streets of what I should probably clarify is Montreal. And I found a cordonnerie that was run by an angry, geriatric Québécois separatist who just did not want to hear my boot story at all. Because the boot story was in English. And his attitude was, "Look, lady, that sign outside says arrête, so either follow suit or move along." And unfortunately, my 12 years of bilingual education in Ottawa, they were mostly spent conjugating verbs. So we did a lot of like, je suis, tu es, LA, and I guess we're like, in the most basic sense, prepared to contemplate existence. But it was just totally unprepared to handle any kind of like real life crisis in French that didn't involve Becherel. But my French instincts kind of kicked in at some point, and I managed to adapt the story for my audience, and I said, "Je ne peux pas enlever ma botte," which he accepted by inviting me to lift my foot on top of this tall counter that was in front of him. And as I kind of like swayed off balance on one foot, he pulled out this cartoon-sized pair of shears, and he sliced through the leather that divided us. And what I learned that day was nothing, because I would continue to buy boots that were too small for me for at least 2 or 3 more years. But what I learned last week, when I was Googling universal themes and how to put them into your story, if you're listening, the walrus, was this quote from the Buddha. Attachment leads to suffering.